Single dad veteran gave up his first-class seat for a female cop. Next day, Marine One landed at his cabin. The cold morning air burned his lungs as he stepped off the shuttle bus, carrying nothing but a worn duffel bag and the quiet weight of a life rebuilt from ashes. Marcus Hale didn't know it yet, but one simple act of kindness was about to ripple through his world in a way he never imagined. Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, disguised as an ordinary choice. Before we dive into this story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Grandma Dearie if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small good deeds. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Marcus was a single father and a retired combat medic, living in a small wooden cabin near a frozen lake in northern Montana. His days were simple now. He worked part-time repairing generators for nearby farms, chopped his own firewood, and spent every spare minute raising his 8-year-old daughter, Harper. Life had stripped him down to essentials after his wife passed away from illness 3 years earlier, leaving him with grief, responsibility, and a quiet resolve to keep going. He didn't complain. He just carried on. That morning at the airport, Marcus had been upgraded unexpectedly to a first-class seat. It was the first luxury he'd experienced in years, and for a brief moment, he allowed himself to enjoy it. Harper had stayed behind with a neighbor while he traveled to a veterans wellness conference, something his counselor had urged him to attend. He settled into the wide leather seat, stared out at the bright daytime sky, and tried to breathe. Then he noticed her. She stood in the aisle in a crisp dark blue uniform, her posture straight despite visible exhaustion. Her name tag read Officer Alyssa Grant. She held a folded boarding pass and looked around politely, clearly trying not to draw attention. The flight attendant explained, February 4th quietly that the plane was overbooked, and Alyssa had been reassigned to economy despite needing space for a leg injury sustained during a recent operation. Marcus saw the slight tension in her jaw and the way she subtly shifted her weight to ease the pain. He didn't hesitate. Marcus rose, gathered his things, and handed over his first-class boarding pass. He didn't announce it. He didn't wait for applause. He simply offered his seat and moved toward the back. Alyssa tried to protest, but Marcus shook his head with a small smile, reminding her that some days you just do what feels right. The economy seat was cramped, and his knees pressed into the tray table the entire flight. But Marcus closed his eyes and thought of Harper's laugh, of warm soup on cold evenings, of the way kindness always seemed to circle back in unexpected ways. He had no idea who Alyssa really was. Alyssa Grant wasn't just any police officer. She was part of a federal task force specializing in disaster response and crisis coordination. The injury in her leg came from helping evacuate families during a wildfire in California. She had boarded that plane after 36 straight hours on duty, heading to Washington for classified briefings. Marcus never asked. Alyssa never told. Their paths crossed for only a moment, and then they separated, strangers again. The next day, sunlight spilled across the snow outside Marcus's cabin as he brewed coffee and helped Harper with her schoolwork. The world felt quiet and ordinary. He stepped outside to split wood when a distant rumble rolled across the lake. At first, he thought it was thunder. Then the ground began to vibrate. Harper ran to the window, eyes wide, pointing toward the sky. A massive green helicopter descended slowly over the frozen clearing near their cabin, its blades whipping snow into white spirals. Marcus dropped his axe, heart pounding. 2 black SUVs followed moments later, carving tracks through the snow. Marine One had. March 4th arrived. Neighbors stood frozen in disbelief as uniformed personnel secured the area. Marcus wrapped his jacket tighter around Harper and stepped forward, unsure if he was in trouble or witnessing someone else's emergency. Then Alyssa Grant stepped out of the helicopter. She approached Marcus with calm authority, her uniform immaculate in the bright daytime light. Behind her stood several high-ranking officials and security agents. Alyssa removed her cap, thanked Marcus for what he had done, and explained that she had shared his story during a briefing about quiet heroism and civilian support for first responders. Someone higher up had insisted on finding him. They had learned about Marcus's service record. About his medical tours overseas. About his wife. About Harper. They hadn't come to reward him with medals or speeches. They came to help. Within hours, Marcus was informed that his outstanding medical bills would be covered through a Veterans Assistance Program. His cabin would receive full winter insulation upgrades. Harper was granted a long-term educational scholarship through a private foundation partnered with Alyssa's agency. And Marcus was offered a permanent role as a community emergency response trainer, giving him steady income while allowing him to stay close to his daughter. Marcus stood there stunned, holding Harper's hand, tears freezing on his cheeks as gratitude overwhelmed him. He hadn't given up his seat expecting anything in return. He had done it because he saw someone hurting and chose compassion. That night, after the helicopters were gone and the lake returned to silence, Marcus tucked Harper into bed and sat on the porch, staring at the stars. For the first time in years, he felt hope settle gently into his chest. Not loud hope. Not dramatic hope. The quiet kind that grows slowly, like sunrise over snow. Life hadn't suddenly become perfect. Grief didn't vanish. Struggles didn't evaporate. But something had shifted. Marcus.